Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Medusa. This will be Part 4, Chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7, Redemption. Izuku walked home silently with Bakugo. The normal taunts and explosions were gone as they silently processed what had happened. Paramedics had rushed in as the heroes were reprimanding Izuku and praising Bakugo. They were both checked on and sent home, though Izuku only got checked on when Bakugo noticed he was being ignored and started screaming and threatening everyone within the immediate vicinity. Izuku was wearing his bright red shoes, the shoes he wore every day, the only shoes that quirkless people could comfortably wear. The shoes that showed anyone and everyone that he was quirkless and not worth their time, leaving the heroes and paramedics to chastise then ignore him, until Bakugo stepped in. Izuku looked at him out of the corner of his eye. Bakugo was deflated as they walked. His head was bowed as he stared listlessly at the ground and his shoulders were slumped. "Kachan?" Izuku asked tentatively. He didn't want to cause his explosive personality to come out again, but it seemed like he was safe from that, at least for now. Bakugo raised his eyes from the ground slowly, and when they locked eyes, he looked so tired. "You okay?" Bakugo scoffed. "What do you think? I was attacked by a villain, only to have to be saved by my quirkless childhood friend because the heroes didn't do shit." He turned to glare at the ground again. "They did nothing, and I was going to die." "But you didn't, Kachan. You got out," Izuku said softly. Maybe his personality could change. All he needed was something traumatic enough, as much as it hurt Izuku to admit that. "And you did beat the villain. You proved today what a great hero you're going to be one day." Bakugo looked at him again. "Why did you save me? I've been nothing but cruel to you since your diagnosis. Just today I told you to kill yourself." Bakugo's eyes captured Izuku's with a sharp intensity. Izuku stopped walking, and he followed suit. "Kachan, despite everything, I couldn't leave you there to die alone. I saw you and knew you needed help, and no one," Izuku growled, "no one jumped in to save you. Sure, they didn't have the best quirks to fight off the villain, but that's no excuse to just let a kid die." Izuku kicked at the road in frustration. How could the heroes just stand by and hope for help like that? If a quirkless kid could jump in, then so could they. "You could have been killed right alongside me. Was it really worth it to jump in like that?" There was no anger in his voice, but rather apprehension. "To be honest, I just jumped in without really thinking. I saw the situation at hand and noticed that none of the heroes were doing anything, and next thing I knew, I was hitting the sludge villain in the face with my bag." Izuku laughed a bit. "I know that a quirkless like me can't do much, but I got it distracted enough for you to defeat him in the end." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You just jumped in without thinking. What about all your analyzing?" Bakugo inquired. "I know you've kept writing in those journals." Well," Izuku looked down. "There wasn't much time, and all I had to go off of were a couple of minutes of my encounter with it earlier in the day." "Wait, what? That was your second encounter?" Bakugo yelled, making Izuku flinch instinctively. Yeah?" Izuku looked back up at Bakugo, who was looking at him with wide eyes. I kinda got trapped by him when I went through the tunnel on the way." He paused for a second as Bakugo's face fell. As they lived only a block away from one another, they both knew the route he took, and why. "On the way home. But All Might—" He stopped again as he thought of All Might's speech to him and scowled. "All Might beat the villain and put him in some bottles. I may have been the reason why it escaped even, so I'm really sorry about that." "If All Might saved you, then why didn't he show up when the villain reappeared?" Bakugo asked, ignoring the last part of Izuku's ramble. Izuku glared off into the distance, "He was there," he mumbled. "He just didn't do anything. Or maybe he couldn't. But either way, he saw everything that happened. I saw him walking away when the other heroes were yelling at me." "It couldn't have been All Might that you saw. The whole crowd would have forgotten about us and started gushing like the damn extras they are," Bakugo countered. Izuku shook his head and started walking again. "I'll tell you more if you want to come to my house, but it was definitely him." Bakugo stayed rooted to the spot for a moment, before following after Izuku, intrigued by what he might have to say about All Might and why he wasn't gushing over being saved by the #1 hero. Luckily, they lived really close to one another, so Bakugo's mom wouldn't mind if he was over at the Midoriyas. They walked the rest of the way quietly, and Bakugo followed into Izuku's house, taking off his shoes with Izuku and listening as he called out that he was home. Izuku knew his mom wasn't home yet because she had switched to the afternoon and overnight shifts during the week and the day shifts over the weekends. "Let's go to the kitchen. We might have some snacks," Izuku said over his shoulder, already heading towards the kitchen. He grabbed a couple fruit squeeze packs and handed one to Bakugo, who had seated himself at the kitchen counter. "So what's up with you and All Might? I thought you were his #1 fan," Bakugo asked. Izuku reached into his bag and pulled out his notebook as he replied. "You say that as if I was a bigger fan than you were," he joked. He flipped to the page that All Might had signed across. "Here's proof that he actually saved me, though it was more like he gave me a concussion, then proceeded to not want anything to do with me after making sure I wasn't dead." Bakugo picked up the notebook gingerly, staring at the autograph before he processed what Izuku said. "What do you mean?" "As I said before, the sludge villain attacked me in the tunnel. It said something about me being the perfect disguise, and then proceeded to drown me. My vision started going black, and then I was knocked out after hearing a loud yell. I woke up to All Might slapping my face. As soon as he realized that I was awake, he tried ditching to take the villain to the police." Izuku shook his head. "I went to get an autograph and saw that he'd already signed my book, and when he went to jump away, I grabbed my bag and latched onto his leg without thinking." Bakugo huffed a laugh at the sight his mind pictured. "He landed us on a rooftop, and I tried to ask him a question, but he said he didn't have any time for my fan antics. I started mumbling about how I just had one question, and then poof." Izuku shook his hands in the air. "He deflated. He showed me this gruesome injury and started talking about how he got it in this fight that never made it to the public, and how he can only hold his hero form for a couple hours now." Izuku paused. "Well, that's actually a national secret or something, but this is what he gets for telling some random kid. Anyways, I asked him what I've asked everyone, if a quirkless person could be a hero." Bakugo gave him a look that he couldn't discern the meaning of. "Of course he said that there was no way, and suggested I become a police officer or a doctor. Then he left me there. I was trying to process everything when I heard your explosions and ran towards them. When the pro heroes were yelling at me, I saw All Might watching in the crowd, still in his deflated form, but then he just left. He was standing and watching the whole time, and he didn't even bother to try to help." Bakugo rubbed a hand down his face. "What the fuck?" he muttered. "Anyways, I'm sorry if you're still mad about me rushing in and everything, but—" "Stop." Bakugo put a hand up. "Just stop. I thank you for saving me, or for giving me a chance to defeat the villain at least. I'm sorry about everything." He groaned. "This is so fucked. Why would... Whatever. You know what? Fuck All Might. He's a shitty hero no matter what his stats are." Izuku gaped at his childhood friend. "But..." "Then I'm sorry for everything else too. You aren't useless, Izuku. You proved that today. You acted like a hero when no one else would." Bakugo seemed to think for a bit. "I shouldn't have said what I did at school today," he whispered. "I went too far. I just thought that you were..." He ran a hand through his hair. "I thought you were looking down on me." Izuku flinched. Well, no. You shouldn't say that to anyone. It isn't okay. If I was actually depressed or something, or if I let what you and All Might said to me hit a little harder, he did leave me on a roof." Izuku trailed off and considered his next words for a moment. He couldn't say that it was fine, because everyone brushing off Bakugo's behavior or encouraging him is what led to his actions. But he looked up at Bakugo and caught his eyes. "I forgive you." Bakugo deflated and laid his head on the counter. "You shouldn't," he muttered. "Well, maybe not. But that wouldn't solve anything, would it?" Izuku asked. "Besides, if we can go back to at least a neutral relationship, that'd be nice. I'm kinda tired of applying burn cream every day." Bakugo flinched. "Shit, I fucked up." He looked back up at Izuku, apology written over every inch of his face. "I promise, I am sorry." "I know, Kachan," Izuku stated. "Just be better. Be a hero that anyone and everyone can count on." Bakugo nodded before standing up. "I will. I should go home. The hag probably saw the fight on the news. She'll flip if I'm too late in coming home." Izuku laughed. "Auntie will probably get on you more than the heroes got on me today." Bakugo grimaced. "That's a given. It's stupid they did that, you know. If anything, they should have been berating me for quirk usage. Technically, I broke a law today." "Yeah, but we can't get it all, right?" Izuku said as he walked Bakugo to the door. "See you tomorrow," he said as he waved him out the door. Bakugo lifted a hand back to him as he walked back to his house. Izuku shut the door before he went and collapsed in bed. He was utterly exhausted. Chapter 8. Detective Needs Help. The last week of classes passed by in a blur. Bakugo stopped bullying Izuku and stopped calling him Deku, though there were a couple slip-ups when he was annoyed and was ranting. With his end of bullying came the rest of the school leaving him alone too. There was one instance that someone left a red spider lily on his desk, but Bakugo found out who it was and told them off for it. Even though Izuku wasn't there for it, Bakugo had looked very smug on their walk home that night, with the explanation of, "I took care of it." Their relationship was still tentative, but Izuku grew more comfortable around him, and Bakugo had stopped using his quirk as much around him after seeing him flinch away from the sound and heat, despite it not being directed at him. He played games with Shinso and Tenko every night that week, as he'd long finished his finals. When he wasn't in class or playing games with his friends, he was studying fights online and analyzing the heroes and villains. He didn't go out as Medusa for the whole week, as he was nursing a constant headache, probably from the minor concussion. It wasn't until late Friday night, after the graduation ceremony and his and Bakugo's joint family celebrations, that he finally felt well enough and took to the streets again. A nice spring breeze blew past Izuku as he once again found himself on a rooftop. The microbot snakes that had woven themselves in his hair obscuring his natural green curls didn't move an inch, as if Izuku couldn't be affected by the weather. He ran across the rooftops as the night went on. It was peculiarly calm, and he had only stopped a couple robberies, both of people and of stores. He stopped on top of a seemingly abandoned warehouse and sat on the ledge. There were two people loitering about, but they had yet to notice him, so he watched them as he took out a fruit squeeze and ate it. As he was watching, another man walked up to them. The three people moved into the warehouse, and he cocked his head. He stuck the empty fruit squeeze into one of his pockets, then leaned over the ledge of the roof to look into one of the high windows of the building. It seemed that there was some sort of illegal deal going on, as the people who had been loitering outside seemed to be discussing something. One of the people pulled out a case of glass bottles filled with some form of liquid from behind a crate, and one of the other two pulled out a wad of yen. Izuku figured that was about as much proof as he needed, and hoped his contacts had captured enough footage as he pulled himself back onto the rooftop. He climbed down from the roof onto the window's ledge and propped it open before sliding inside as quietly as he could onto a viewer's ramp that ran the perimeter inside. "That enough?" One of the men huffed, as the man that had handed over the case of glasses counted the wad of yen. The dealer had a goblin-like mutation with distorted facial features and gray skin. He had long claws on his fingers and fangs protruding from his mouth. He might also have some other forms of extra enhancement, but in what areas, that was currently impossible to tell. The two buyers didn't seem to have mutation quirks, so Izuku had no idea what their danger level was. Izuku watched as they finished their deal, and the two buyers left the warehouse. Izuku climbed over the edge of the ramp as quietly as he could. He climbed under the ramp and to the wall, using his microbots as added support until he was hanging over the door. As the dealer was happily pocketing the money and going to leave the warehouse, Izuku dropped down in front of the only exit. The man stumbled back, yelping as Izuku rose from his crouch. "What the hell?" the man yelled. He charged at Izuku, who dodged the blow and tapped a mechanism on his wrist that made his contacts and choker glow a bright pink. He willed the snakes to move in his hair for nothing but dramatic effect. The man had punched a hole through the wall where Izuku had been standing and cursed as he pulled his arm free, then rounded on Izuku again. As soon as the man saw Izuku, he froze in place. Izuku let the effect take hold for a few minutes and then questioned him. "Mind telling me what you were doing here tonight, sir?" His voice was several tones deeper thanks to the voice modulator mask that he was wearing. The man visibly relaxed and responded. "I sold some dudes a concoction I made with my DNA to give them a rush of adrenaline." "And was this in a legal manner?" Izuku asked. "If it was legal, I wouldn't be selling it to them in an abandoned warehouse, you prick," the man said as he started to bristle. Izuku clicked his tongue and made his eyes and choker glow pink again. As the man froze up again, Izuku stepped around him and whacked the back of his neck with the side of his hand, effectively knocking the man out. Izuku left the building as the man fell to the floor. A few blocks away, Izuku found the two men that had bought the drinks in an alley. They were sitting behind a dumpster and were holding the bottles they'd bought up close to their face. "This shit had better work," one of them huffed. "If it doesn't, we'll pretend to go buy more and strip the man for all he's got," the other planned. Izuku rolled his eyes at the two and leapt across more rooftops until he was a safe distance away, hiding behind a chimney, though if he peeked around it, he could perfectly see the two men. He pulled out a chunky phone and pulled up the footage he'd caught through his contacts. He started clipping the footage before pulling up a new text string with Detective Naomasa. Unknown number changed nickname to Medusa. Medusa changed your nickname to Detective Needs Help. Sent GPS location. Sent GPS location. Shared video. Thought you might want to arrest some people after viewing the footage. Last known locations attached. How the fuck did you get this number? I got a new phone. Change my name, now. No can do. You can only change nicknames once. I would hurry up with your arrests before they get away. Turn yourself in and stop chasing criminals. You are a criminal yourself. What's your motive? You take the fun out of everything. Medusa changed your nickname to Fun Killer. You said you could only change it once. That's what's making this so funny. Oh look, the heroes finally arrived. Good multitasking. Hope you weren't trying to track my phone. Tisk tisk. Izuku closed the chat and put his phone away as he watched Eraserhead drop into the alley and police cars screech to a stop at both alley entrances to arrest the two buyers. He hid behind the chimney as Eraserhead started doing a slow scan of the area and hoped that he hadn't been caught. He slowly crept to the low wall of the roof, keeping low and having the snakes flatten to his head, before quickly and quietly escaping the roof and making his way home. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 8 of Medusa. Chapter 9 will be up next. I would love to hear the thoughts and reactions you all are having to this so far, so drop your comments below for me. Just a reminder, of course, as always, that the fic is located over on AO3. You can slide over, leaving comments, kudos, and support to the original author as well. I'm sure it's much appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for listening.